and welcome to this week's episode of Margaritas with Marguerita Cheng, CFP Pro. We know you are going to love today's guest. Liz Simmie is the co-founder of Honeytree Investment Management. She's based up in Toronto. And our topic is everything you need to know about ESGs, which are environmental, social, and corporate governance. So take it away, Miss Rita.
Well, thank you so much, Hope, and welcome, Liz. We are so excited that you are here with us today.
I am thrilled to be here with both of you.
So we are going to talk about ESG. So let's just jump right into it. I don't like to use a lot of acronyms without explaining what they are. Hope did a great intro. But if you don't mind, for our viewers and listeners, what is ESG?
ESG has a lot of definitions, and it's a very confusing acronym for everybody inside the investment industry and outside of the investment industry. But ultimately, what it means is environmental, social, and governance factors related to companies, big and small, not just publicly listed ones. And I like to describe it as all the non-financial factors. You know, when we're in the investment world, we traditionally think of financial outputs and inputs that a corporation has. ESG really encapsulates all of the non-financial inputs and outputs that a company has. And they actually don't fit nicely in ES and G buckets. That's one of the big problems with the acronym. Inputs and outputs that a company has all overlap. They're all complex. They all overlap with financials as well. And so ESG is something it's a big catch-all term. Folks vaguely know what we're talking about, but it separates things like worker safety and taking care of the environment from the operations of a company, when in fact those are the operations of a company. So it's a flawed acronym, even though I use it regularly in my business and in podcasts and things. But that when people say ESG, they're really referring to the non-traditional financial factors that we look at in terms of company reporting performance and how they'd operate. So that's the quick answer, but we could talk about it for 100 years. It's such a complex topic.
No, I love it, and that was so helpful. So why, in your opinion, and this could be looking in or being in the industry, are investors interested in ESG and impact-related investment products and strategies?
There's a whole bunch of reasons. It started along a number of decades ago with mainly religious investors working on things like gun safety, the apartheid, and various activities where they were very specifically saying, if we're trying to do good in the world, we want to also do good with our investment, whatever that good looks like and however we achieve that. And it has evolved to a whole bunch of options. So the original, we'll call it the original apartheid-focused religious investors, evolved into SRI, so socially responsible investing, where we began excluding companies in investment portfolios that did stuff that was deemed bad, tobacco or weapons, or the Catholic groups, for example, would exclude companies involved in anything related to abortion or birth control. So that there is actually a whole bunch of different angles to this, and it's very fascinating. But as it's evolved even more, companies have started reporting relatively standardized data that whether it is worker safety or the weapons they produce, but also their diversity. So now, 5 years ago, most companies didn't report their workforce diversity. Now, the majority of S&P 500 or publicly listed companies are reporting standardized workforce diversity data, standardized water use, emissions. And by the way, these are not just data sets that are fun that they're estimating, that they're making up. They're getting to be assured and externally validated by auditors, just like the financials. So it's the whole space is moving very quickly. But where we've evolved is ESG now. When we say an ESG fund or an ESG investing, we're usually talking about a mix of exclusions, so cutting out tobacco and weapons and things like that, but also the positive side of it. So investing in companies improving their diversity, investing in companies reducing their emissions, investing in companies that, our framework is who are stakeholder governed, who are taking care of their stakeholders and are making money while they do it. And that, that goes against a lot of traditional beliefs, that companies can actually do good while making money. But you can see how the investor has also kind of evolved in the broad offering, because there's a lot of, just to be super confusing, there's a lot of ESG strategies that don't look at positive impacts. They just are regular investment models where they exclude a bunch of stuff. And that's ESG too. So there's really like 60 different ways to do it, just like traditional investing, right? And I always push back. People say, oh, ESG is in the eye of the beholder, or it's about your personal values. And I'll say, well, so is investing. If you're a passive investor, that's part of your values. If you're you like the new IPOs, that's part of your values. And so you see the same stuff happening in ESG land, as I like to call it. And so there's no right way to do ESG. There's no right way to invest. There's lots of wrong ways to do it, and there's lots of wrong ways to invest. But it's a very fascinating space, and it's really about making products and investment portfolios that meet the end client's needs, whatever those needs may be.
So true. And as you mentioned, even just investing, just regular investing without the ESG screens and filters. There's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way. But what really matters is what aligns with the investor's goals, objectives, and values. So this is a big question. I'm based in Maryland, very close to the DC line. Is ESG political?
ESG is both political and completely non-political. I like to say, nobody wants to kill employees. Doesn't matter which party you're in. Any well-run business understands that employee safety is directly linked to the bottom line. Every company understands that the EPA is going to fine them if they, dump a whole bunch of stuff into a river. That has nothing to do with politics. When we get into diversity and things like that, or even renewables, states like Texas are leaders in renewables. Countries like China are leaders in renewables. States like Texas also have some leadership in the areas of equity inclusion, even though they might not want to admit it. But it's, the well-run companies all around the world understand that their workforce plays an important role in the local community. And so anybody, the idea that it's, woke to care about diversity on your team ignores that there's a societal benefit, which leads to a company benefit for more women, for example, being in leadership roles and having a higher pay, right? And so well-run companies, regardless of the political beliefs of the founders or where they're founded, understands that working, reasonable minimum wages, all these kind of things, and drive retention, make it easier to, not lose employees to competitors, all these things that are not political in any way, shape, or form. Does stuff get, kind of grouped together? And, gun safety is a really great example, or guns, does that overlap with political? Sure. There's not that many gun companies or weapons companies out there too. So the idea that it's a huge issue, it's, there are certainly overlaps with politics, but the idea that, and I'm going to push back to the industry, the idea that the investment industry is woke because it sells ESG products is ridiculous. The asset management industry is woefully behind most other industries at equity and inclusion. They're behind energy. So energy companies, when you look at the data, are doing more work on women in leadership roles, racial diversity in leadership roles than a lot of asset managers. So, the energy companies in Texas are woke, if that's how we want to measure, politics. But, that's not actually true. Anyway, so it's a really complicated mess, where the folks who actually, the asset managers who are working the least on diversity are getting labeled as the wokest diversity focused, and the companies, we own companies in the Midwest and in Texas who have done much more work on equity and inclusion than, the East Coast companies. So while there's a little bit of overlap with politics here and there, and obviously, you're not likely to find, we'll call it, non-progressive folks driving things like racial equity and all this kind of stuff. I don't think it's as political as folks think, and people need to, get past the political rhetoric to see what's actually going on in companies all over the place, and how they're driving change, because that's another thing that happens. The politicians are trying to make it look, on all sides, they're trying to make it look like the asset management industry is driving ESG. It's not. The corporations of all sizes are the ones driving ESG, driving the ESG reporting, the sustainability reporting, improving, fighting with other companies to retain employees and hire good folks by offering great benefits and training and working on, their culture and all this kind of stuff. So the space is really messy, but it's there's nobody out there in the world who thinks it's a good idea to kill employees and dump toxins in the river. And so, those are the basic tenets of ESG, and those are not political in any way.
No, that is so well said. And I think the other thing that's really challenging for people, what one person believes to be socially responsible could be socially irresponsible for everyone else. But that's why it's important to have different strategies to appeal to the needs of different investors. So, as we wind down our conversation, this is a big question. How is ESG data being standardized? And how is it being used for reporting to help both corporations and the investors?
Probably the most complex question, and I don't even think most ESG folks know the answer to this. The US is actually driving, and I think I surprise a lot of people when I say that the US is driving it, because folks think it's Europe or Canada's a bit of a mess. But European companies were the first ones to start reporting, we'll call it sustainability data, because of the mandates and the big pensions, and we'll call it a little more. They were a little earlier on being involved in, we'll call it the ESG reporting space and the evolution of that. Fast forward, and this was, 20 years ago, Sustainalytics and MSCI and all those companies kind of got started around then, and building large data sets. The US, though, the Department of Labor specifically mandated reporting for companies over 50. It is specifically a Hispanic initiative, but it's in California, but it's the EEO-1 reports. So all companies in the US for quite a while now have had to disclose to the Department of Labor their workforce diversity by gender and racial background by level. Lots of companies refuse to release that data publicly, but lots of other companies started releasing it publicly and started putting it into reporting. And that allowed the US listed companies to leapfrog Europe, because Europe was only reporting gender diversity and not in detail and not in any truly standardized way. So the EEO-1 reports have become the basis since we started Honeytree in 2018. Before then, there was a bit of a mess and a lack of standardized data, but the Department of Labor reporting has really, on the, we'll call it the workforce side, the workforce reporting side, has really done a lot of driving. And there was about 20 frameworks for reporting ESG data, but most large corporations settled on the GRI format, which I'm not going to go into acronyms or what it means, but it's basically, when you look at a sustainability report, which is 200 pages, you go to the last 5 pages, and it's the list of standardized workforce and environmental and kind of governance related outputs that auditors are now using to report. And so that's kind of solidified globally. The big companies anyways, and the smaller companies are catching up, this kind of useful set of quantitative ESG data, where you're looking at year-over-year data. So now all the companies we look at are reporting gender diversity in leadership roles year over year, racial diversity in leadership roles year over year, water use year over year, waste, recycling, emissions. And there's a lot of qualitative stuff in there, and there's a million other things you can look at, but we've gone from not standardized data in 2018 to a good chunk of large publicly listed companies reporting it in the same format. And so it's always funny when folks are like, ESG's, not standardized. There are companies who refuse to release it. And Tesla is a really interesting example. Tesla and a whole bunch of other companies just refuse to release their workforce diversity data. And it's interesting because I don't know why they didn't want to release it. They would be better than asset managers who also really release their data. But if everybody else is doing it, that's where the companies are driving it. It's peer pressure. It's not the institutional allocators and advisors saying, give us your data. It's the everybody else is reporting it. And so you have to too. And so they've actually released. So it's interesting to watch, but it is, and there are of course companies who refuse to report any of it, and that's totally cool. They will be forced by regulators to start reporting it in the next 5 years. And whether that's just simple emissions or simple workforce diversity data, simple, even just turnover, turnover, retention, pay levels, all this stuff is going to get standardized in the audited financials. And so anybody who thinks it's, a fad or whatever doesn't realize that these, the pay equity piece comes from the UK. The UK has pay equity required reporting for all corporations working in the UK. So you can see how all these little pieces are coming together, and this data set is going to move from the sustainability reports, the ESG reports, to the annual report. And a bunch of companies put it in the annual report already. So it's really actually, it's probably my favorite topic is this kind of the evolution of ESG data. And the financials did the same thing. You go back enough decades, the financials weren't standardized, nor were they systematized and organized. And then they got, and so we're just doing the same thing with the non-financial data that we've been able to do with the financial data over the last century.
So I'm loving it. And so transparency is very important. So, of course, this is the opportunity for you to tell more about Honeytree Investment Management and how people can get started in to learn more about ESG products.
So we're a very new and small firm. We're one of the few woman-owned ESG shops in the world, which is fascinating how little gender and racial diversity there is in asset management ownership. I invite everybody to check out our website, honeytreeinvest.com, where we have about 25 blogs, all on ESG / investment related topics, lots of podcasts, conferences and things like that. There are so many resources, whether it's your advisor, a fund company website. The US CIF is my favorite if you're an investment professional or like the geeky investment stuff. The US Sustainable Invest, I don't even know what the acronym, US CIF, USSIF is they have a free course for retail investors and for investment pros on sustainable investing. They're the most legit organization in the world when it comes to ESG and asset management. And this ESG fund space, we'll call it, is evolving quickly. Folks think there's too many ESG funds and ETFs. There's not. We're only at the very early stages of them. There's lots of, Googling ESG ETF or ESG mutual funds. There are tons of great options out there, but there will be more one day. We hope to launch a vehicle so advisors and investors can access our strategy. But just like regular investing, there's everything from passive to systematic to active, and there's a whole bunch of other ways that folks do ESG. So there's not one right way to do it. So in your research, don't assume that whether Goldman or UBS or whoever is that there's many ways and many approaches, and there might not be exactly what fits your needs now, but in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll have an even broader set of investment options, and it'll be very exciting, and the data will be more standardized and more exciting, and we'll have maybe even more firms that are diversely owned, selling ESG strategies. I mean, that's the most important thing. If we as an industry are going to sell diversity linked products, we as an industry need to do a lot better at the diversity thing, because about 3 or 4% of leadership and asset management is women, and the racial diversity numbers aren't even counted. And so we have a lot of work to do beyond just building good products. We need to enact change in our industry, because that's what the end client also wants, and that's what I think it's very important to understand. ESG, the clients that want ESG, the investors that want to invest with ESG, live that in their lives, live that when they go and choose restaurants, live that when they choose shoes, and they're going to do it when they choose the teams who invest in investment products and the teams that run the investment products. And it's gonna as the generations evolve, it's going to cause a lot of havoc in this industry, and it hopefully will lead to some change.
So well said. Yes, it is ever evolving. New strategies are developing every quarter. And so it's so important to check out all the resources, particularly USIF, United States Sustainable Investment Forum, and others. So back to you, Hope. Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you, ladies. Wow, Liz, that was an amazing education that you just shared with all of us. So thank you so much for being on this week's episode of Margaritas with Marguerita Cheng, CFP Pro. I'm Hope Katz-Gibbs, producer of the show. You just learned from Liz Simmie, co-founder of Honeytree Investment Management. So thank you, Rita. Thank you, Liz. And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. We will be back next week with another episode. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for being part of our Incandescent Radio and TV family. This is Hope Katz-Gibbs, founder of Incandescent Incorporated, the PR and publishing company for women entrepreneurs. Our Incandescent Radio and TV shows are brought to you by our advertisers and clients. Margaritas with Marguerita Cheng, CFP Pro, brings us 15 minutes of tips every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Facebook Live, where you'll meet experts who are helping us flex our financial muscles. Find all of the episodes at margueritacheng.com. You'll also meet intuitive psychotherapist Kara Keem, who interviews therapists and other intuitive guides from around the world. Learn more at karakeem.com. And you're going to love social justice expert Karen Hanrahan, CEO of the San Francisco-based Glide Memorial Foundation. She bridges the gap from local impact to global change on her Thought Leadership show on Incandescent Radio. Learn more about Karen at KarenHanrahan.com. You're also going to love Alina Liao, founder of the radical wellness journaling company, ZenitJournals.com. Alina asks, have you tried to journal but found it hard to keep up? Zenit makes it easier to journal for your wellness. With Zenit, you can customize your journal with prompts that speak to you. No more blank pages. Your Zenit is your personalized space to take care of yourself. Website, ZenitJournals.com. Feel it, write it, Zenit. You'll also meet amazing Tracy Schott, founder of Voices for Change. Tracy is determined to change the world and end domestic violence. Learn more at voicesforchange.net. And we are so thrilled to be publishing a book for Angela Mitchell, who is the tech expert of case management. And she's also the founder of this fabulous organization, Kids Code 2. She is determined to teach kids to code computers. Talk about teaching a kid to fish. We invite you to discover and peruse all the Incandescent Incorporated websites, the magazine for women, by women, about women, incandescentwomen.com. Our health and wellness magazine is beincandescent.com, the business of mind, body, spirit, soul, and heart. Our YouTube channel is incandescent.tv, and you can learn about our PR and book publishing services at incandescent.us. If you'd like to have your own radio and video show, check us out at incandescentradio.com, where you can see what we can do for you. These podcasts are also featured on iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Our podcasts are produced by Brandy Wilsker. Our videos are produced by Nelson Benavides. Our website developer is Max KUKOY, and our incandescent illustrator and designer is Michael GLENWOOD GIBBS. If you'd like to learn more, please send me an email, hope@hopegibbs.com. Here is to your incredible, indelible, incandescent success. Much love and many